So Charlie writes in this group chat, just lost another huge Jewish donor, $2 million a year because we won't cancel Tucker.
Oh.
I'm thinking of inviting Candace.
Oh, fuck.
Charlie writes, Jewish donors play into all of the stereotypes. I cannot and will not be bullied like this.
Damn.
Leaving me no choice but to leave the pro-Israel.
Damn, what the fuck? I said, give me receipts. We got receipts. Shit. Damn. Okay, it's really like that. For sure. The Candace Owens Charlie Kirk leak sparked MAGA meltdown and the TPUSA accusations. Video by Philip DeFranco. Let's check this out. I heard about this. This went super viral recently. I'm very curious. What happened here?
This Candace Owens, Charlie Kirk, MAGA divide situation is crazy. Candace Owens dropping alleged Charlie Kirk text screenshots. Because if you haven't seen, ever since Charlie Kirk was assassinated, you've had Candace Owens out there questioning the federal investigation, discussing it frequently on our podcast, and putting out some of her own theories or possibilities as to why or how he was killed. And with all that, she's often claimed that Charlie, who had long been pro-Israel, was starting to change his mind and become more critical.
Right, and I was like, where the fuck are the receipts? She keeps saying that Charlie was starting to turn on Israel, and I'm like, I need receipts. Okay, let's see.
She got a ton of attention when she claimed that MAGA and pro-Israel billionaire Bill Ackman had privately cornered Charlie at an event in the Hamptons not long before his death and made, quote, threats after Charlie questioned the way that Israel was handling the war. Now, Ackman denied that, and you had Charlie's producer and spokesperson claiming that Charlie had a cordial relationship with Bill. But apparently at this Hamptons meeting, people were questioning whether or not Charlie should host Tucker Carlson, who he's been very critical of Israel at an upcoming event, and Kirk allegedly claimed, honestly, people telling me not to have Tucker makes me want to have Tucker. And all this ties to some of the latest claims that Candace has made, saying yesterday on her show that Charlie was, quote, done with Israel bullying him, and then sharing screenshots of messages that she claims came from a group chat that Charlie was in with his pastor and 7 other people, where he said,
so Charlie writes in this group chat, just lost another huge Jewish donor, $2 million a year because we won't cancel Tucker. I'm thinking of inviting Candace.
Oh, fuck.
Charlie writes, Jewish donors play into all of the stereotypes. I cannot and will not be bullied like this.
Damn.
Leaving me no choice but to leave the pro-Israel.
Damn, what the fuck? I said, give me receipts. We got receipts. Shit. Damn. Okay, it's really like that. For sure.
And somebody writes, a donor writes, please do not invite Candace. That might feel good short term, but it's not good long term. This is 48 hours before Charlie was assassinated. He was very clear and he was very explicit.
48 hours before he was, damn, bro. Wow. Wow. And you said this was in a group chat with 7 other people? Can you trust all of those people? Man.
Not back down, not in that Hamptons meeting, which they're all lying about, nor in this text thread.
Now with this, it seems like Candace wasn't part of this alleged group chat, and she also doesn't make it 100% clear how she got these apparent messages, which I also will say have not been independently verified by any major news outlets, at least as of recording. Right, but this comes as she was also alleging that higher-ups at Turning Point USA are trying to stop her and others from investigating Charlie's death and promoting their own conspiracies about what happened.
What we do know definitively is that the feds are lying to us. That is obvious. It is abundant. If you have...
I mean, if Candace is lying, if these are fabricated, that is some crazy shit that she would be, you know, trying to spark up.
If you're able to think thoughts, you recognize that something is very wrong with the story that has been presented to the public. And I think that what the public doesn't understand, and I count myself among the public.
Bro, Charlie Kirk, he's practically white people's Martin Luther King at this point. If they can start to shift the narrative or the perception of Israel in the minds of these low information Republicans that are just like sheepishly supporting Israel, even as they're committing a genocide in the Middle East, if they start to turn on Israel, that's going to be some real bad news, man, for Israel.
Is why it seems as though Turning Point USA executives, and I'll say seems, are not even remotely interested in challenging that official narrative. Who are they protecting exactly? You'll see oftentimes they and other influencers will invoke Erica as the reason that it's not appropriate to ask questions. It's just not appropriate while Erica is still mourning for you guys to ask any questions. And I'm just going to come back at you with some common sense. What sort of widow wouldn't want people to investigate the assassination of their husband?
You also had Candace claiming that Charlie had been discussing his increased interest in Catholicism with her, even sharing a screenshot where it appears that he said it was looking better and better. And while she also said that he wasn't in the process of converting, she suggested that he was toying with the idea. But also, apparently people at TPUSA were denying that he had a major interest in converting to Catholicism, and this upset Candace Owens as she felt that was not being fully honest. Right? And she was overall just upset.
I mean, all of it's fucking garbage anyway, so who gives a fuck? It's all poison.
That she believes that Turning Point execs are telling small lies here and there about Charlie and questioning why they would be doing this. With her then tying it back to the comments that Charlie allegedly made about the donors withholding money and adding,
you got people that are hosting a show. Have they, in like one honorable thing, come out and said, like, you know what? F a couple of these donors who made his life a living hell in the last couple of weeks. That registers to me as very suspicious. I'm going to frankly say that. It's suspicious to me. It makes me think that in the same way that Charlie was being pressured by money, that you might be now run by that same money.
With Candace also claiming that Turning Point has made tens of millions of dollars since Charlie died, and saying that from the organization's perspective.
So how are we supposed to honor Charlie, right? You honor Charlie, of course, by donating to Turning Point USA and shutting up and trusting the feds. Don't question anything.
Right, and so you've had tons of people seeing Candace share this, especially the screenshots discussing donors, and thinking she's dropping a major bombshell here. Right, and then with all that, you had Andrew Colvett, a spokesperson for TPUSA and a producer of the Charlie Kirk Show, saying,
yo, check out that, that's a good point. This user right here says, if Candace Owens is lying, why isn't TPUSA suing her for defamation? Should be pretty easy to settle in discovery if these texts, these receipts are false, right?
With all that, you had
That's a good point.
Andrew Colvett, a spokesperson for TPUSA and a producer of the Charlie Kirk Show, saying today that yes, the texts are real and that he was in the group chat and he was the one who took the screenshots.
Okay.
And he added that he never shared them with the public because they were private messages and he'd only given them to the government amid the initial investigation to Charlie's death. But they somehow made their way out to the world, and then adding,
in those first moments, we wanted no stone unturned. We wanted to leave nothing unturned. So I shared it with a few people.
Here's what I think, bro. I think Israel has some very powerful American politicians by the fucking balls, bro. They got them shits in a vice grip. It's just what my gut is telling me. It's just something is very fishy, bro. Some is just very off with this whole America-Israel relationship that clearly is being hidden from the American public.
Blake, that I'm glad to have this now public. It was not mine to share publicly. But, one of the criticisms we've received is that we don't care. We're not investigating every lead. We're not looking under every stone. When I say that we want justice for Charlie more than anybody else, I really mean it, and no stone unturned.
With then another guy on the show saying that the reason some in the organization aren't talking about it is because they don't want to interfere with the ongoing investigation. And Andrew adding that he doesn't begrudge anyone publicly asking questions, but also adding that he believes that Charlie's views towards Israel were totally transparent.
What is the truth about the way Charlie felt about Israel? Well, it's complicated and it's nuanced, and it was a wrestle that was going on for months. I looked at that moment as like, he's just blown off steam. He's frustrated. He's venting, right? And I just want to say, he made that very clear under any circumstances that he was not going to be cowed or bullied into deplatforming Tucker, for example.
With him suggesting that Charlie was ultimately pro-Israel, even if he did have some criticisms and questions. But then also you've had some noting that Candace's comments about Charlie point to a larger discussion about how different factions of the riot are trying to jump on Charlie's death for different reasons. Right? Because while it appeared that, she's trying to suggest that TPUSA is trying to use Charlie's death in a way that best serves the organization, you that also had some turning the tables and saying that the same could be said for Candace. With all this, you even had The Guardian publishing a piece a few weeks ago saying, what is notable about the way the right is responding to Kirk's death is the opportunism. And going on to say, in a moment when Israel's genocide in Gaza is leading to more open public criticism of Zionism, Owens is capitalizing. She continually refers to Zionists controlling the media and Kirk's speech while he was alive. And then with that, they also spoke to Derek Barris, the co-host of the Conspirituality podcast, who's an expert in conspiracies and media literacy. And what you saw is that he noted that it's totally fair for the public to not have faith in Trump and Kash Patel's FBI, to question what they're putting out there. But then he also added, quote, one thing about Candace is that she's an opportunist at every stage.
Sure.
There's no consistency. It's about whatever is going to get eyeballs on me. We then also added that this is true for tons of different people.
And you got to remember, a good tree can't bear bad fruit and vice versa. Candace Owens, her entire thing, her entire brand is built on grifting. It was built on anti-black grifting. And so you can never look at Candace Owens as somebody who is genuine or trustworthy. She is a sellout through and through and an opportunist, because that is the pinnacle of malicious opportunism, is being a fucking sellout to your own people. So definitely I agree with this assessment, but it doesn't take away from the fact that we have verification that those text messages are real, and the imagery that was initially being pushed of Charlie Kirk being the super pro-Israel guy and there was never any wavering in that feeling, we now see that that was a lie. And that's interesting. But my God, Candace Owens is fucking crushing it right now, dude. Look at this shit. Everything is about Charlie, though. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, day after day after day, racking up 3 million views, 3 million views, 3 million views, 3 million views. Who's bigger than Candace right now, bro? In terms of political commentary, who's bigger than Candace? This is insane. I've been so engrossed in what's going on the black side of YouTube that I was not even paying attention over here. I mean, this entire situation is a lose-lose for MAGA and Republicans and the far right. Why? Because one of two things is true here. Either Candace Owens is onto something and Israel really did play some role in the assassination of Charlie Kirk, which would then mean that this bullshit rhetoric that they're pushing, that the left is violent and trans people are a danger to society because they're all committing mass shootings or political assassinations, that would mean that's bullshit. That's just propaganda being pushed by Israeli powers, Zionist powers, which we already know just from the statistics, right? The right is far more violent than the left. And so we know it's bullshit either way, but it makes it even more bullshit. But let's say Candace is wrong and it really was an unhinged lone gunman that just wanted to deal with what he thought was a problem in society, but he went about it completely wrong. If that's the case, we are witnessing a massive portion of conservatives, Republicans, people on the right fall into a bullshit conspiracy theory, showing us just how easily manipulated these people are. And so no way, either way you slice it, it's an L, it's a loss for the right, conservatives, for Republicans. Truly a sad state to be in, man. A sad state to be in. We know conservatives are no strangers to embracing conspiracy theories. And the reason why conservatives, by the way, are so susceptible to conspiracy theories is because even though they live in a country that keeps telling them that they're the ones that matter the most, aka white people, that their interests are the ones that are being prioritized. All you have to do is look at American history to see that has been the case ever since slavery. Yet so many of them are suffering, living paycheck to paycheck, struggling to make ends meet. But because they're also so ignorant, they don't know their own history. They don't know American history. They don't know world history. They don't understand economics. They don't know shit. They really don't know anything. They're very easily sent off in the wrong direction. Oh, you can't afford eggs? Mexicans are the problem. Oh, you can't afford to buy a home? Black people. Black on black crime is the problem. Your children won't listen to you? It's the Jews. All the while, the real people who are causing their problems, the oligarchy that runs America, the billionaires that are actually in control of American policies, they get to just keep on fucking everybody over. It's insane. And of course, at the very core of it is Christianity, because when that is your fundamental worldview, you are a conspiracy theorist by nature. You believe that there is an invisible evil villain that is constantly trying to destroy you and destroy the world and destroy everybody around you. You believe that one day a man is going to fly down out of the sky and just scoop everybody up and it's going to be happily ever after. There is this constant invisible war between angels and demons. When that is your core ideology that you see the world through, It's so easy to believe in other conspiracy theories. It's so easy. It breeds anti-intellectualism because anytime we make any advancements in science, for instance, or make any discoveries that contradict the philosophies of Christianity, like evolution, for instance, instead of coming to the realization that your worldview is built upon a 2,000-year-old mythology, you believe that the evil villain that the God, the good loving God, just allows to continue to roam and rule over earth for whatever fucking reason. He is trying to sow disinformation in the minds of people. That's why people on the right, they're against vaccines. That's why people on the right are insulated from data and statistics. They don't care about it. That's why they don't want to look at countries like China that have completely blown America out of the water in its ability to progress their people at an alarming rate. Did you know in China, 90% of Chinese people own their homes? Did you know that? So America is supposedly the land of the free, yet you don't own shit. You are being completely controlled by billionaires. The billionaires own you. So for instance, violent crime rate, homicide rate per 100,000 people, 5.8 to 6.1 2023 in America. Now, it is going down because the world as a whole is getting safer, despite what conservative politicians would like you to believe, that America is somehow becoming more violent as a result of more immigrants coming in. But violence has been falling. However, it's only 0.5 to 0.6 in China. The murder rate is so much lower in China. There's almost no crime in China. I have a friend who actually recently went to China to explore the Chinese hip hop scene because they actually have a pretty healthy, thriving hip hop scene over there. And he was like, bro, there's no crime in China. Like, you can be a woman walking around at midnight pretty much anywhere in China, and you don't have to worry about getting robbed. You don't have to worry about anything bad happening to you. Now, look at this. Unemployment rate, 4.3% in America. Supposedly 5.2 to 5.3% in China. However, a higher unemployment rate isn't necessarily a bad thing. All it means is that you're not currently working a job. And so someone who is retired, for instance, would fall into the metric of unemployment. I think what is far more significant when you take into account unemployment are the cost of living, home ownership, as well as homelessness rate, the homelessness rate. So let's check this out. Everything costs half as much in China, meaning your paycheck goes twice as far in China as it does America. Imagine if all your bills just got cut in half tomorrow. That's what it would be like living in, but you're making the same money. That's what it would be like living in China, bro. Let's look at home ownership rate. In America, only 65% of people own the homes they live in. And by the way, that doesn't mean they own it outright. It usually means a bank owns it, but they're pouring into the principal, they're pouring into the equity of it, and hopefully they pay it off at some point and actually do own the home. But in China, bro, it is 87 to 96%. Just split the difference, call it 90%. 90% of people in China own the house they live in. Let's look at homelessness. Homelessness is going up in America. Currently, we have almost 1 million people. 771,000 people in America are considered homeless, up from 653,000 in 2023. This is insane. Over 100,000 more homeless people over the course of the last year. In China, that number allegedly is somewhere between 2.4 to 3 million. So yeah, they have more homeless people, but remember, they have 4 times the population. So when you take that into account, China's homelessness rate, and again, I'm using the most generous number, which is 3 million, and that is complete speculation. This is not information coming from the Chinese government, for instance. This is just people probably in America trying to guess how many homeless people there are in China. They have a lower homelessness rate. How the fuck they got higher unemployment, but less homeless people? Make that make sense. America's homeless rate is 0.23% as opposed to 0.21% in China. And 9 out of 10 Chinese people own their homes, whereas in America, it's more like 6.5 people own their homes. In China, you can pay off your home more quickly because everything is half the price. In fact, homes are super cheap in China. They have an excess, they have a surplus of homes. All while America is the wealthiest country in the world. So crime is lower, it's safer, Everything's cheaper. You have less homeless people. It's easier to own a home. Because everything's cheaper, you have more money in savings. They have free healthcare. They have free school. They have free university. All of that. Tell me exactly what is better about America. At this point, if you got the chance to spawn in to this world, you would be far better off being spawned into a middle-class Chinese family than a middle-class American family. That's the reality of it. And the only reason politicians and billionaires get to continue to trick Americans, so many Americans, into accepting this hyper-capitalist society instead of going more towards a socialist society, which clearly yields better results for the population, is because, in large part, Christianity has indoctrinated the people in the West with the idea that your outcomes are directly tied to and are solely determined by your performance, a meritocracy, right? Because that's what the Bible teaches. The Bible teaches if you're a good little boy, God blesses you. And if you are suffering, it's because you've been a bad boy. This is why conservatives are so calloused to the idea of helping the less fortunate, helping the poor. And because they're so ignorant of history, they're actually deluded into believing that poor people are poor because they're just not trying hard enough. There is no need to reevaluate whether or not the way we are doing things politically in this country is what's fucking us over. Now, the reality of it is the Democrats are not good either, bro. The Democrat Party is just as capitalistic as the Republican Party. It's just a little bit better. It's slightly better. So don't think that just by voting blue, that we're going to solve all our problems. It would definitely yield a better society than what we have right now. But guys, in our reality, Obama deported more immigrants in his first term than Trump did. We need a complete overhaul of the way we do things in America. A complete overhaul, bro. It needs to change in a very fundamental way. If America was ran the way China is ran with the amount of wealth we have, we would literally be living in a fucking like utopia. We're our own biggest enemies, bro. The American people are their own biggest enemies because we allow ourselves to be continuously tricked and fooled by these billionaires, by the oligarchy that runs this country. As poverty and homelessness continues to increase in this country, which it's going to continue to do if we continue to be beholden to billionaires, the crime and division that we see in this country is only going to get worse and worse and worse and worse. This is the source of all the bigotry in the country as well, because bigotry in large part is fueled by a feeling of disempowerment. So for instance, let's take a look at the attack on feminism. A lot of people who are against feminism, they're against feminism for a plethora of reasons. But one of the biggest arguments I've heard against feminism is that it flooded the workforce. It flooded the work population with women. And as a result of that, it weakened the bargaining power of the individual worker. Well, when there are more workers, you can pay each individual worker less in a capitalistic society. This is, of course, not perceived as an issue in China because they're working under another model. Capitalism is the source of our problems over here where that is concerned. But what do the billionaires do? Instead of allowing you to see the true root of the problem, they then say the real problem is women getting jobs, women in the workforce, feminism. That's the problem. Do you know why we have a housing crisis in America? It's not because America is broke, and it's not because America doesn't have the land. We have far more available land and far more money than China when you take into account the population size and the amount of space we have and the resources we have, right? The problem is politicians are owned by billionaires. Some of these billionaires are in the housing industry. And so what do? They bribe politicians via lobbying to incentivize them to pass laws that make it harder to build new homes. By doing that, you artificially decrease the supply of homes, raising the prices. You raise the prices, you make it harder for them to buy a home, for the average American to buy a home. What then happens? You have to rent. And so you become a perpetual customer to these billionaires who are able to buy up the houses that do exist and are preventing the construction of new homes. This is the result of capitalism. In China, which is based on a more communistic model, a more socialist model, that problem doesn't exist. In fact, they have too many houses. You can go on YouTube and learn about ghost buildings and ghost apartments, essentially because China so quickly elevated a large portion of their population out of poverty. You had all these people who wanted to buy homes. And so real estate investors started rushing and building homes so that these people could purchase them. And then they ended up building too many, which is a great problem to have. Too many houses is a great problem to have because it makes owning a home, which is the bedrock of personal individual advancement as a person in a society, it's super easy to do if you're a Chinese person living in China. Things do not have to be the way they are, man. Things do not need to be the way they are here in America. And until the American population finally becomes more educated on the different options that we have in terms of how our societies ran, and we start to stand up for ourselves, we're going to continue to just get fucked, dude. You know that feeling you have worrying about your bills, feeling like you have to work yourself to death just to make ends meet? That isn't mandatory. It doesn't have to be that way. We can live in a world where you work a regular job and you can easily just afford to live a nice life, still having access to all of the technologies and luxuries that you have grown to appreciate. In fact, we would get even more. We got to do away with this myth that capitalism is the engine of progress, because clearly it's not. What is the whole idea behind capitalism and a free market society is that different businesses will be allowed to compete with one another, and thus it encourages advancement. But the reality is the cars in China are better. The phones in China are better. The technology they have overall is just better in China. The transportation system is better in China. Like, who is competing with Amazon? Who's competing with Walmart? Target? Okay, we got two options. Capitalism always results in an oligarchy. Unchecked capitalism results in monopolies, bro. I'm telling you, Christianity and capitalism are the two ideologies that are holding America back more than anything else. They breed bigotry, hatred, and poverty. When your saving account is constantly growing, when you own your home, when everything is way cheaper, you just don't have any incentive or motivation to be a bigot. You have no incentive to hate on immigrants. It's like, bro, we're all chilling. Life is good. Everybody's good. Who gives a fuck if my neighbor is a Mexican? But when you're tricked into believing that that Mexican is the reason why your rent is so high, well, then guess what? You're going to hate Mexicans. How's it that we have the largest prison population in the world? Like, our prison population is larger than China's prison population. China has 4 times the people. We have more prisoners, yet we also have more crime. Clearly something is wrong, and none of it is an accident. None of it. And so in that way, Candace Owens, she is also a function of the problem, because she's while she's trying to get you to focus on all this conspiracy theory bullshit about who killed Charlie Kirk, the real problem continues to be veiled, and you continue to just miss the point. But hey, man, that's the video. You let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Thank you for watching, and until next time, peace out.